Hi, I'm Dr. Tracy Marks, a psychiatrist, and I make mental health education videos. It turns out our brains are wired for social interaction, and when we don't get it, the brain changes and you lose nerve connections in certain parts of the brain. Before COVID, this issue was more noticeable in older people who lived alone, cut off from their families, and maybe unable to drive. Researchers saw that the social isolation hastened the age-related cognitive decline and was a risk for developing Alzheimer's disease. But with COVID and the ensuing lockdown, we see the evidence of these brain changes in younger people. In one of the studies that I referenced, researchers looked at structural MRI data from 32,000 people. That's a large study. The people who were socially isolated showed brain loss in the temporal lobes, frontal lobes, and hippocampus. Your hippocampus is important for emotional memories, among other functions, and I've said before that people who are depressed have smaller hippocampi. Now, if you've watched many of my videos, you probably know that I don't like presenting negative information without a silver lining, and here it is. Even if you have brain loss from pandemic isolation, depression, long COVID, or something else that causes brain damage, your brain has the ability to rewire itself and strengthen loose connections. This ability is called neuroplasticity. So one solution to this problem of social isolation is to build up your cognitive reserve. Cognitive reserve is the mental buffer you have that lets your brain compensate and function even when you have reduced brain volume. It's like having a backup power generator turn on when the power goes out. And this is a real thing and explains why some people can get to their 80s and still be very sharp, while someone else at 68 is having trouble remembering important events. The more robust your cognitive reserve, the better you're able to function when exposed to stressors like isolation, environmental toxins, chronic stress, or anything else that's damaging to the brain. So you can think of cognitive reserve as your brain's physiological resilience. Here are 5 things that can increase your cognitive reserve: education, high levels of social interaction, cognitively challenging jobs, activities that engage your brain like crossword puzzles, reading, learning a new language, and learning to play an instrument. And then regular physical exercise, because exercise stimulates nerve growth, and nerve growth means new pathways and connections. I explain how that works in my video on how exercise changes your brain. Building up your cognitive reserve is something you do over a lifetime. It's not a one and done thing. You have to continuously engage your mind. And education doesn't mean you have to go to Harvard or Oxford if you're in the UK. It's not about the kind of degree you get. It's about a commitment to learning and processing new information. When I was growing up without the internet, the way that you gained knowledge was to go to school or go to the library and look things up in encyclopedias. But now there is so much information available online that you can get a very advanced level of education from researching and reading from trusted online sources. If you want to learn a new language, there's online courses for that. Then there's even free YouTube videos that can teach you a lot about a lot of different things. You just have to stay curious. This list that I just gave you isn't exhaustive. Diet, sleep, and self-care also factor in. But the one thing I like about this list is that most of the factors are within your control. You may not be able to control how challenging your job is. In fact, it may be a mind-numbing struggle for you to get through it every day. But you can compensate for the hit that your brain takes from that kind of job by exercising before you go to work, if you can swing that schedule, or working on mind puzzles during your lunch hour or when you get home. Another thing you can do is develop a suicide safety plan. And this is something that's best done with the help of your doctor or therapist. But if you don't have one, you can still think through this yourself. The safety plan is a list of coping strategies and sources of support that you can have in place when you start to feel suicidal. Here's a 6-step safety plan based on research studies, and I'll have the references in the description. You want to write these steps down, and I have a link to a template that you can download from my website. Step 1 is to identify warning signs. Ask yourself, what's going on when you start to become suicidal? Think about your behaviors and your thought processes. An example of this would be you start thinking a lot about buying a gun, and behavior might be that you start blowing up at your family a lot. Step 2 is to write down coping strategies. And this would be things that you can do on your own to help you not act on your thoughts. And examples might be like going for a walk outside or watching a movie. And this doesn't have to be something that sounds healthy, like go on a run. This should be something that you can do without a lot of resistance, that you get pleasure from. If this doesn't work, you want to go to step 3, which is to identify social contacts and settings that can distract you from the crisis. You want to ask yourself, who do you like to be around to get your mind off things? Or if there's a place that you like, where can you go that makes you feel good? If you go out with a friend, this can be a casual friend because this isn't a step where you want to tell the person what's going on with you. You're just wanting to keep it light and you want the situation itself to distract you. An example of step 3 may be going to a coffee shop or a bookstore and sitting around and watching people. If this doesn't help enough, then move on to step 4, which is to engage friends or family members. You want to list 3 or more people in order of priority, with the first person on the list being the most supportive of you. And this is someone that you're going to tell you're in crisis so they can help you. So this is your network of supports. If this does not work for you, you go on to step 5, which is to contact a professional or an agency. And you want to have a list of your providers, local urgent care centers or hotlines, and you want to include the phone numbers of these places. Step 6 is to make your environment safe. You want to get rid of things like guns or large bottles of pills. If you get the 90-day supply of medication, take out only enough for a week at a time and then put them into a pill organizer. Then give the rest to a trusted friend or family member. Even though this is the last step, you still want to do this as you're forming your plan. This isn't a step that you get to only if none of the other steps work. The last thing to ask yourself is, what's the one thing currently in your life that's important enough for you to stay alive? You write this one thing down on your list so you can keep yourself focused on the big reason that you're going to implement this plan. Remember, most suicide attempts are impulsive. You can convince yourself that your situation will be much better if everything is over. You can also convince yourself that people won't care if you do this, so it's really not hurting anyone. But that's distorted, in-the-moment thinking. The reality that you don't appreciate is that the collateral damage from suicide runs deep and wide. It's like a nuclear blast that leaves permanent damage behind. Download this template to help you write out a plan. You could either print it and fill it out, or you can complete it on the computer and then print it. Keep a copy for yourself and give a copy to your close network and your therapist. If you prefer to keep things on your phone, there's an app called MY3 that has a safety plan that you can store in your phone. It even allows you to email the plan to someone. Stay safe and see you next time.